Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Kartikeya Sharma. Today we have 3 On Points lined up for you. Trump declares the Iran understanding is over in fresh strikes by Iran. Trump threatens to strike Iran as early as tonight. Is West Asia closer to another dangerous confrontation? From Prambanan to Angkor Wat, India's ancient civilization links are shaping its modern diplomacy. As PM Modi visits Indonesia today, we trace how New Delhi has revived shared heritage across Asia over the last decade. India is aiming for a 50,000 crore defence export milestone, and at the current pace, the target could be achieved years ahead of schedule. From BrahMos to Akash, Indian-made weapons are now reaching over 80 countries. Is India emerging as the world's next major defence exporter? And now let's take a quick look at the headlines. Torrential rains trigger flash floods and mudslides in Chenab's Valley, Dora district, damaging houses and shops. The flash floods and mudslides hit Tatri town following cloudburst. Uttarakhand government forms high-level committee to probe into alleged irregularities in the donations at Badrinath Shrine. 3 arrested in connection with the assault on doctors and medical staff at the Kalyan Dombivli Hospital. IMA Maharashtra announces 24-hour service strike to denounce the attack. US indicts Lawrence Bishnoi and Goldie Brar in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Nijjar, puts a reward of $50,000 for information leading to his arrest. Indictment also states no involvement of Indian government in the killing of Nijjar. President Trump holds bilateral meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Turkey. The two leaders discussed efforts to end the conflict with Russia. The fragile understanding between Washington and Tehran appears to have unraveled, and Trump is threatening to attack Iran very soon. What was projected as a temporary pause in the hostilities now seem to be collapsing under fresh military exchanges. After Iran struck American military bases in Bahrain and Kuwait, US President Donald Trump has declared the interim understanding with Iran over, signaling that diplomacy is no longer his preferred path. The statement marks a dramatic shift in Washington's posture and raises fresh fears that West Asia could once again slip into a prolonged and dangerous confrontation.
They're sick. There's something wrong with them. We said, go and do your funeral stuff. And instead of that, they start shooting rockets at ships yesterday. And so we hit them very hard last night, very hard. I would say 20 to 1, 20 times tougher. And I told them, every time you hit, we hit. And of course, they're dirty players, so they go after everyone, probably including me. I've been #1 on their list for years, and they're a bunch of scum, you want to know the truth. They're scum. And so we don't like them. I don't like them. And they're evil people, and it's the denuclearization of Iran. And we're going to denuke it. We're not going to let them because they're crazy.
Trump's declaration is not merely political rhetoric, it carries strategic consequences. If diplomatic channels close, the region could witness a cycle of retaliation involving proxies, missile strikes, maritime disruptions, and a renewed security crisis across the Gulf. Every escalation increases the risk of miscalculation, drawing more regional and global powers into an already volatile theater. The consequences are no longer confined to the battlefield. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the world's most critical energy corridors. Any disruption to shipping or oil infrastructure threatens global security of energy. It drives crude prices higher and revives inflationary pressure for the economies already battling slowing growth. The ceasefire may be holding for now, but the peace process is facing serious roadblocks. The United States and Iran remains divided over 5 key issues: Tehran's nuclear program, the Strait of Hormuz, sanctions, ballistic missiles and proxy groups, and Iran's demand for war reparations. Until these core disputes are resolved, the path to a comprehensive peace agreement remains uncertain, with the risk of renewed confrontation still looming. Markets have already reacted. equity indices have slipped sharply as investors price in geopolitical uncertainty and the possibility of prolonged instability in West Asia. So the bigger issue is, why are strikes and counter-strikes not ending? On this issue, I'm joined by Lieutenant Colonel, retired Dr. Mordechai Kedar. He joins me from Israel. I'll be joined by Raja Karthikeyan, West Asia expert from Takshashila Institute, Major General Sudhakarji, defense expert, and Dr. Saeed Asif Rizvi. He joins me from Iran. Thank you so much. Let me straight away go to Lieutenant Colonel Mordechai Kedar. Can we say that we are going to witness an endless war in West Asia, sir?
First of all, if I was Iranian, I would be very, very much afraid, because the language which you just showed, how Trump talks about the Iranians, scum. You know English. You know exactly what it means. Terrible people. You know, all these expressions, if they really reflect what the man thinks about the Iranians, I would be very worried, because such a language definitely reflects what he thinks about Iran. This is to begin with. Secondly, the Iranians actually want the longest war ever, because they want to have the prices of oil rocketing up, because they think that Trump will fail in the midterm elections in November, and they want to harm the world and to push the world into a mayhem in order to have the Mahdi come back, because of the Faza al-Akbar, as they say, the big mayhem which will engulf the whole world. This is why they hit Kuwait and Bahrain and Oman and Qatar. Even Qatar, their bosom buddy, they hit the Qataris. They are willing to push the world into chaos. And therefore, Trump is the man to stop them.
Okay. Okay, let me take opening comments from Dr. Saeed Asif Rizvi. Do you think that the peace is going to hold, or are we going to witness another round? I think there's a bit of a line problem with Saeed Asif. Let me take this question to General Sudhakarji. So I know you had said this long time ago, Karthikeyan, that this is not going to be a short war. Are we witnessing a long war?
Karthikeyan, good evening. Thank you for inviting me for your show. Can you repeat the question, please, if you
I'm
don't
just
mind?
saying that you said long time ago that Karthikeyan, it's not going to be a short war. Are we witnessing a long war, unending war?
Yes.
And why do these attacks continue?
Without any doubt, first part of your question, like I had, the nearest parallel I had drawn was Vietnam War. And second part of your question is why these retaliations or the reopening of the war going on. They will go on because first and foremost thing that they had underestimated Iran. Iran has asserted or emerged as a kind of a, not yet, a kind of a regional power or a power stronger than that the world perceived it to be prior to 28 February 2026. And third and most important point is that a superpower having come into the war, call it any war, Netanyahu's war or USA's war or global war, whatever, oil war, having actually entered the war, he doesn't have any exit. There is no honorable exit. And for any conflict, any military power to participate, they first of all decide what is the point of return, point of exit. That has not been decided. And in order to decide the point of exit, they have to be very clear about the political and the military objective. It's no gain saying 4 days, it will finish, 6 days, 14 days, no. So therefore, they have actually got into this conflict without any clarity in the mind, without any end state objective. And now they have created a new challenge. That new challenge is Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz cannot be brought back to the international status unless it is physically captured by the forces, be it Israelis or Americans. It has to be physically captured. To explain this, you come back to me, I'll explain if time permits, because it's not that
We have all the
easy.
time. Sudhakarji, we have all the time. Let me take opening comments from Raja Karthikeyan. Why are these strikes happening again and again? And I really don't know whether they are actually giving the right numbers, but the numbers are on the higher side, you know, which is being both claimed by the Americans and even the Iranians. The Iranians saying that they have had 85 American bases. So why is this happening?
Thank you, Karthikeya. There's something strange going on. I say strange because the linkage of these strikes to international oil prices is uncanny. You know, the way whenever oil prices start dipping a little, and then these strikes happen. So I wonder. I don't want to peddle any conspiracy theories, but sometimes one cannot help but wonder if there is some kind of international arbitrage going on vis-a-vis oil prices that is in relation to these strikes. The second issue is that there is certainly a lot of unresolved issues as far as point 5 of the MOU is concerned in terms of the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. The point 5 says that Iran will make arrangements to the best of its efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And it does not really clarify whether that means transit of ships is supposed to happen through international waters or through Iran's territorial waters, as Iran interprets. It also talks about Iran discussing with the Sultanate of Oman in order to come up with a mechanism for future transit of ships. And initially, Oman was not inclined. Now there are reports that Oman may be inclined about charging some kind of a fee. We have to see. But all of this means that this is, I do not believe this is what the American negotiators were going for.
But you know, the escalation is going up. I'll read a line of Trump, and I'll take this to Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Keda. The Trump says, I'll give them a little warning. They're going to hit them hard tonight, but we'll see how it all works out. I mean to say, you can't be more open on military campaign than this if you're a head of a state.
Well, this is his way of conduct. He says something very harsh, then he gives them a ladder to get off the tree. Means he is, you know, in the morning he says something, and at noon he says something else, and in the evenings totally opposite. And maybe this is his strategy of negotiations in order to get them dizzy, but this is his way. I don't know what is the reason for this way of talking, but definitely they should feel very bad about it.
Coming back to the moot issue, are we going to witness this low-intensity warfare to continue? And will Israel continue to squeeze life out of the small Gulf states like Bahrain, Kuwait, and make them feel the pain of the war? Are they going to push this strategy more aggressively, sir? Sudhakarji. Sudhakarji, are you...
There is some problem in Karthikeya, but I'll repeat the question if you don't mind, please.
My question is that, is Israel going to exert more pressure on regional players in West Asia?
Okay, you give me 2 minutes, let me explain. The answer is yes. Yes, because it is, whatever Israel is doing, it is for the existential justification. So far, till this end of 40 days war, Israel was the dominant force. It was perceived and actually de facto and de jure dominant force in Middle East. But after the 40 days war, what has come to light is that it was no longer the dominant force. There is another new force which has come up. It is the emergence of Iran as a contestant, a kind of a contender for occupying that particular space. Now, because of which, there are two things happening. We need to take cognizance of this. One, there are some countries in West Asia which are leaning towards Israel. For example, UAE has already got Israeli forces. It has got Iron Beam, it has got Patriot missile, and the people who are to operate and also instruct them to take their training. So similarly, there are other two countries, I have been told not to take the names, they are leaning towards Israel, but also at the same time, on 21st of March 2026, the president of Iran had gone on public to make a statement that it is about time that we come to a conclusion that the local problem will have a local solution, West Asia problem will have a West Asia solution. Therefore, they said, they had indirectly indicated to Americans, buzz off, you have no place, no space here, we'll find a solution. And also in the same breath, he had indicated that Iran had started engaging with all the coastal countries in the Persian Gulf for formation or creation of an architecture, security architecture to take care of the Persian Gulf. And that is coming into existence. That is going to be a huge deterrence. Deterrence is not about the JCPOA or enriched uranium. As per my understanding, Israel is fearful of one thing, that here is Iran. The justification of existence of Israel was based on looking at Iran as a terrorist state, as a weak state, or as a pariah state, whatever you may call it. But now the terminology has to be changed. There are two contenders. Iran is no longer a pushover now. Therefore, Israel has to contend with or reconcile with the new concepts which are emerging. It is no longer the extended Israel in Middle East which is going to come to the fore. Therefore, they have to evolve themselves and make amends to their perception and objective.
Okay, Raja, I would like you to come on one very important issue. Do you expect Americans to really strike when the entire funeral thing has been organized? Do you really expect them to strike right now, or is it just a loud noise?
Well, actually, the timing is also, I mean, it's not inconvenient in a way. You know, the mortal remains, or I believe the actual funeral, it is a symbolic funeral. The actual funeral would have happened. But you know, that it had already moved to Najaf.
You're saying it's a symbolic funeral?
Yes. So all of this was a symbolic service in a way, and it had moved already to Najaf in Iraq when these particular strikes happened. So the reason I believe even the Americans did not do anything, let's say in the last 3 days when there were all these massive crowds, etc. in Tehran, the timing is they have seen that this is right now shall we say the funeral procession of sorts has moved to Najaf in Iraq. So this is certainly in terms of timing, it's an okay timing for the strikes. That's how they would have calculated it. Because otherwise nothing new has happened in these strikes. It has not happened in terms of periodic strikes that have happened in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'd say, since the signing of the MOU. One very important issue that actually the general pointed out is that there is a new security architecture in the making. And in particular, the states, the Gulf states with large Shia populations, Kuwait and Bahrain, I believe the Iranians would like to see them not have American bases in the future. So they know that for Qatar, it will be a much harder decision to take. And for UAE, I think there will be a kind of co-optation, even some kind of friction with UAE for the long term. There is no question. The Iranians are aware of this. But as far as Kuwait and Bahrain are concerned, and that's where they are focusing there. They're not focusing on Saudi Arabia. Think about it, because Saudi Arabia does not have at least, a U.S. military presence since the Dhahran attacks since 2004 when the U.S. troops left Saudi Arabia. So it is Kuwait and Bahrain. They are the most important Gulf states right now in terms of Iran's security calculus, and getting the U.S. troops, which I think roughly in the range of 20,000 or so in these countries to leave, is they see it as crucial for Iran's future security and to remake the security architecture.
Absolutely. So coming back to this wider issue, Colonel Kedar, the truce has seen the intensity of warfare come down. But then the Iranians, when they continue to attack the Gulf GCC nations, do you think that there can be some sort of a counter-military, unacknowledged strike by all these nations, which had taken place, and it subsequently came to light that UAE and other nations had quietly organized counter-strikes inside Iran?
Well, so far, the role of the Gulf Emirates, Bahrain as well, Oman as well, Qatar as well, against Iran was very limited, if at all. The only countries which really hit Iran are Israel and the United States of America, or you can change the order. All those countries in the Gulf who suffer tremendously from Iran. Look, Iran burned a whole facility, a refinery in Ras Tanura of the Saudis. A big, giant damage. What did the Saudis do against Iran? Not much, by themselves, I'm talking. What did the Emiratis do? Although they also suffered tremendously. You know, there is almost no tourists in Dubai, and this is a tourism-oriented economy.
But sir, were countries like Israel, America able to achieve the political objectives? You know, war should have a political objective. There has been no regime change. In fact, I'm surprised to see so much of crowd. It's a repressive regime. You know, it kills its own people, and the war has organized them around the clergy, the oppressive clergy.
No doubt. The problem with Iran is not only what Iran is doing to its neighbors, it's only inside Iran. Don't forget that the war which started in the end of February was erupted after Trump promised the people of Iran that help is on its way. Okay, it took some weeks until the help came, but no doubt that the war on Iran was motivated in America by the mass killing of the demonstrators on the 8th and the 9th of January this year, and what happened in the December as well. So this is actually, in my humble view, the goal of the war, to get rid of the mullah regime in Iran and to liberate Iran and the Iranian people, to liberate them from the dictatorship which took them over in 1979. It's time for this terror regime which spread terror and havoc all over the Middle East, in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, here between us and the Palestinians. Wherever this regime can, they erupt the situation. And this is actually what also threatens Lebanon today, because Hezbollah, which is sponsored and trained and armed and equipped by Iran, are threatening to take the country over and to turn Lebanon from a normal state to a jihadistan. And this is what, unfortunately, the world sees and says nothing. In the Security Council of the United Nations, which Iran is conning them for who knows how many decades, the IAEA in Geneva also being cheated to by the Iranians for many years.
Okay.
The Iranians keep lying to everybody, and it's time that somebody like Trump will come to give them the bill for the havoc.
I don't know, sir. I don't know what Trump can do, but you know, I don't know what Trump can do. But General Sudhakarji, can really Trump afford a second phase of military round in Iran? Can he financially, militarily, politically, domestically afford it? That's the question, sir.
That's a brilliant question, Karthikeyan, you have asked. I must compliment my brother officer from Israel. I hold him in high admiration. He made some remarkable points. But the fact of the matter is we cannot ignore the reality. The reality as on today there are multiple points, but to save on time, let me highlight the important ones to answer your question. Today, what is the status of USA and what is the status of Iran? Let's talk about the combat capability. Today, USA, the stockpile as per the open source has depleted to around 50% or lower than that. As per my study and research, it is gone below 33%. 33% for a military force of the size of superpower going in for a conflict and extending it beyond a time limit at a distance of 12,000, 14,000 kilometers away from the mainland, dependent on primary weapon systems. Your primary weapon systems are interceptors, Tomahawk missile, and you have your Patriot missile and the ecosystem of the Patriot missile. When you take into account of all these, each of them, you carry out a bin count, you will come to a conclusion that USA forces on which Israel to some extent, I would say, is dependent on USA, on the mother industry, defense industry. So therefore, with a limited or rather depleted kind of a stockpile, it will not be able to orchestrate a sustainable kind of a warfare, number one. Number two, the cost of winning a war has been raised by Iran by resorting to asymmetric deterrence. What I mean is, the cost in terms of the real cost of all these products, you compare one drone which is being manufactured in Iran for $20,000. Nowadays, There are a lot of my friends who are saying because of mass production in Iran,
Okay.
the cost of this drone has come down to $2,000. So you compare $2,000 worth of a drone, which is aerial platform, to neutralize that drone, they have to fire minimum one. With one missile, you cannot bring it down. You have
Correct.
to fire minimum 2 to 3. If you fire one, cost of one missile is 4 million, and cost of 3 missiles comes to 12 million. Where is 12 million? Where is, I'm not taking into account $2,000, $20,000. Look at the kind of a disproportionate ratio. Second point is that the time taken to produce all this, the defense industry in USA has raised its arm to fill up the void or make up the deficiency in the stockpile, because one interceptor takes anything between 1.5 to 3 years for manufacturing.
Okay.
And each of these products that I am taking, you add on the Virginia class of submarine, you have F-35,
Okay.
name anything. They are dependent on a rare earth element in large quantity, which China has weaponized. They are also
What's my take, General? I think America is slightly taken back by the audacity of the Iranian leadership. They expected them to play a slightly subdued role, but they don't follow into the trap because Donald Trump consumes foreign policy for domestic ends. And sometimes when you do that, it does not play up to the script. I've run short of time. Thank you, Raja Kartike. Thank you, Sudhakarji. And thank you, Dr. Moduchai Keda, for joining me from Israel. But yes, we live in a worried time. It's a worried world. We should all be worried. That is, if Israel escalates the attack in the Strait of Hormuz, then we are in for tough time, because this war will not be limited to West Asia. It affects everyone. So this was on point 1. In on point 2, from Prambanan to Angkor Wat, India's ancient civilization links are shaping its modern diplomacy. How's that? Do after a short break.
Meet the tomorrow today. ICFI is the bridge between tomorrow and today. Bridge between aspirations and accomplishment. Bridge between I wish to I can. I will remove the gap. Welcome to the I. I am ICFI. Belief called I. I can fly above imagination.
Belfast, sudden act of violence, and within hours, a city was pulled into chaos. What began as a stabbing has now ignited nights of unrest across Northern Ireland. Fresh unrest has erupted in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir with large-scale protests. As the guns fall silent in the Iran war, Donald Trump has opened a new diplomatic front in the West Asia. Not with missiles, not with sanctions, but with a bold demand. Uganda has closed its border with the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo with immediate effect.
As Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits the historic Prambanan temple in Indonesia, the visit is far more than a ceremonial stop. It is a reaffirmation of India's civilizational connect with Southeast Asia and a powerful demonstration of New Delhi's cultural diplomacy. Over the past decade, India has increasingly used its shared heritage to deepen strategic partnerships, restore ancient monuments, and strengthen people-to-people ties across Asia and beyond. From the temples of Bangladesh to the ancient Hindu complexes of Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and Sri Lanka, India has steadily invested in preserving monuments that reflect a shared civilizational past. Through Archaeological Survey of India and government-backed grants, New Delhi has restored temples, pagodas, UNESCO World Heritage Sites, projecting India's soft power far beyond its borders. India's foreign policy today is not driven by economies and security alone. Cultural diplomacy has emerged as a strategic instrument by restoring temples and heritage sites linked to Sanatan traditions, Buddhism and shared Asian history. India is reinforcing centuries-old civilizational bonds while expanding its influence across Indo-Pacific and Gulf. Prambanan stands as one of the world's greatest Hindu temple complexes outside India. Prime Minister Modi's visit underscores a broader message that India's civilization legacy transcends modern borders. Over the last decade,